The vibration was a dull, insistent buzz against the polished oak of my coffee table. I stared at my iPhone as if it were a venomous snake, coiled and ready to strike. The screen glowed with a notification that turned my blood to ice water. 3 missed calls, Arthur Walsh. Arthur wasn't just a friend. He was my attorney, the executor of my estate, the man who had handled everything from my late wife's will to the incorporation of my consulting firm. We didn't have a standing Sunday chat. A call from him, let alone 3 on a weekend, meant one thing. Something was profoundly wrong. Then the text came through, the words stark and terrifying on the screen. Arthur, Robert, call me now. Do not go to your daughter's house. I mean it. A cold dread, sharp and metallic, filled my mouth. I was literally shrugging on my favorite worn leather jacket, my keys jangling in my hand, about to walk out the door. My daughter, Chloe, had been so unusually persistent this week. Her voice, a perfect melody of feigned concern, echoed in my head. Daddy, you're becoming a hermit. We miss you. The boys haven't seen you in ages. I'm making your favorite, slow-cooked brisket with those roasted potatoes you love. Please, don't say no. How could I? My granddaughter Lily had even gotten on the phone, her little voice piping, Papa, come over, we made a fort. It had melted the last of my resistance. I'd been looking forward to it all week, a bright spot in the quiet solitude of my life in my Presidio Heights home. But Arthur's text was a bucket of ice water. I slowly let my jacket slide from my shoulders and sank back into the deep embrace of my Chesterfield sofa, the one my wife, Evelyn, and I had fallen in love with 35 years ago when we first bought this San Francisco landmark. Evelyn would have known exactly what to do. Her calm, sharp intellect could cut through any crisis. But pancreatic cancer had stolen her 4 years ago, and I'd been navigating the fog of grief alone ever since. My fingers, clumsy and trembling, finally managed to dial Arthur's number. He answered on the first ring. Robert. His voice was a low, tight baritone, all business, but I could hear the thrum of alarm beneath the professional veneer. Where are you right now? Are you alone? I'm at home, Arthur. You're scaring the hell out of me. What's going on? Good. Stay there. Lock your doors. I'm 10 minutes away. We need to talk face to face. You need to see what landed on my desk this morning. The 10 minutes felt like 10 hours. I paced the length of the living room, my eyes tracing the familiar contours of my life. The floor-to-ceiling bookshelves crammed with engineering textbooks and Evelyn's novels. The framed Ansel Adams prints we'd collected on our trips to Yosemite. The faint scent of lemon polish and old wood that was the very smell of home. What could be so dire that Arthur wouldn't discuss it over the phone? The doorbell chimed, a sonorous tone that usually felt welcoming. Now it felt like a knell. I let Arthur in. He was a tall, broad-shouldered man in his late 60s, with a full head of silver hair and the kind of tan that spoke of weekends on his sailboat. Today his face was grim, his usual easy smile absent. He carried a slim, black leather attaché case that seemed to hold the weight of the world. He didn't bother with pleasantries. He followed me to the formal dining room, the long mahogany table a relic of dinner parties long past. He unlatched the case and began spreading out documents, arranging them with a chilling precision, like a coroner preparing for an autopsy. Robert, he began, his gaze steady and serious. 3 days ago, your daughter Chloe and her husband Mark filed a petition with the Superior Court of California. They are applying to have you declared mentally incapacitated. They are seeking to become your legal conservators, giving them complete control over your person and, more importantly, all of your assets. The air left my lungs in a violent rush. The room tilted on its axis. I had to grip the edge of the table to steady myself. That's insane, Arthur. I'm 71, not 101. I still run my own investment portfolio. I sit on the board of 2 tech startups. I just passed my driver's test with flying colors 6 months ago. My voice cracked. The panic I'd been holding back beginning to leak through. Why? For God's sake, why would they do this? Arthur slid a single sheet of paper toward me. It was a financial summary, cold and impersonal. Because of this, Robert, this house in this market is appraised at $8.2 million. Your liquid investments, your stock portfolio, and your bond holdings total $4.3 million. Your various retirement accounts and cash savings bring your total net worth to just over $14 million. I knew I was wealthy. Evelyn and I had worked relentlessly. I'd spent 40 years as a structural engineer, founding a firm that had worked on some of California's most iconic buildings. We'd invested wisely, lived well but not extravagantly, and the insane San Francisco real estate boom had done the rest. But hearing it laid out like that, in such a clinical, targeted manner, made my stomach churn. "Chloe knows about the house," I said slowly, the pieces beginning to click into a horrifying mosaic. "Last Thanksgiving, she was going on about the Zillow estimate. She joked that I was sitting on a diamond mine. She said I should think about downsizing." "It wasn't a joke, Robert." Arthur opened his laptop and turned the screen toward me. "Look at this. Your daughter and Mark are in a financial freefall. They bought that 5-bedroom McMansion in Atherton for $3.2 million with a jumbo mortgage they can barely service. Then Mark decided he was a venture capitalist and sank nearly $1 million of their home equity into a sure-thing blockchain startup that turned out to be vaporware. Their property taxes are north of $40,000 a year. Your grandson, Leo's elite private high school, is $50,000 annually. They are leveraged to the hilt." I stared at the columns of numbers, my mind reeling. How do you have all this?" "Because their financial distress is a key part of their petition, Robert. They're arguing that your supposed declining mental state poses a threat to their financial future, that you might make irresponsible decisions with their inheritance. They've been building a case against you for the better part of a year." He showed me the evidence, a series of grainy, long-lens photos of me at the grocery store, allegedly looking lost and confused in the cereal aisle. I was squinting at the ingredients, trying to find a low-sugar option when the grandkids visited. A letter from my longtime physician, Dr. Evans, noting I'd seemed disoriented during a routine physical. I'd just flown back from a taxing business trip in Tokyo and was severely jet-lagged. A transcribed phone call where I supposedly couldn't recall my own address. I'd given them my P.O. box number for a mailing, not my street address. It was a tapestry of lies, woven from the ordinary threads of an aging man's life. Every minor moment of forgetfulness, every instance of distraction, every normal sign of being a busy human being twisted and weaponized. "This is fraud," I whispered, my voice hollow. This is abuse." "Yes, it is, and it's a growing epidemic, Robert. Adult children feeling entitled to their parents' wealth, deciding they don't want to wait. The courts are flooded with these cases. They moved quickly, hoping to get a default judgment before you even knew what hit you." "What happens if they win?" I asked, though I dreaded the answer. "They become your legal guardians. They control your bank accounts, your investments, your property. They can sell this house, move you into a managed care facility, make every medical and financial decision for you. You would lose your autonomy completely." And Robert, he leaned forward, his eyes filled with a painful pity. "Based on their financials, I'd give it 3 months tops before a for sale sign is planted in your front lawn." This house, the house where Evelyn and I had painted the nursery for Chloe, where we'd hosted countless Christmas Eves, the air filled with the scent of pine and roasting turkey, where we'd planted the magnolia tree in the backyard that now bloomed with glorious waxy white flowers every spring, where Evelyn had taken her last breath in our bedroom upstairs, her hand in mine. They weren't just after my money, they were trying to erase my life, my memories, my last connection to the woman I loved. "They can't do this," I breathed. The betrayal so profound, it felt like a physical wound. "Chloe, she wouldn't." "I'm sorry, Robert, but the evidence suggests she already has. They waited for a triggering event, that minor fender bender you had last year.
I remembered it clearly. A kid on his phone had run a stop sign and clipped my front fender. The police report stated I was not at fault, but now I understood why Chloe had become so hyper-involved afterward, insisting on driving me to appointments, taking notes on her iPad during conversations. She wasn't being a caring daughter, she was a field surgeon triaging her prey. What do I do, Arthur? I felt a terrifying cocktail of emotions, gut-wrenching sorrow, white-hot rage, and a chilling sense of fear. Arthur straightened up, his expression shifting from sympathetic friend to strategic general. We fight back, and we fight to win. But Robert, I need you to be absolutely clear about what this means. This isn't just a legal skirmish. This is a war that will obliterate your family. There will be no going back. I thought of Chloe as a little girl, her tiny hand in mine as we crossed the street. I saw her in her white wedding dress beaming at me before she walked down the aisle. I heard her voice from just days ago, dripping with false warmth. "I love you, Daddy." But then I saw the financial summary, I heard Arthur's words, I saw the calculated, cold-blooded plan to strip me of everything. I looked Arthur dead in the eye, the grief in my heart hardening into a core of tempered steel. "Tell me what we need to do." A slow, grim smile spread across Arthur's face. It was the smile of a warrior. First, we document everything, starting right now. You're going to keep a detailed journal. What you eat for breakfast, what you read in the newspaper, the stocks you trade, the conversations you have, timestamps, details, evidence that your mind is sharp and your judgment is sound. Okay? Second, we get you evaluated by an independent neuropsychiatrist, not Dr. Evans, who they've already poisoned, but a top-tier specialist in cognitive health, someone who can testify authoritatively that you are, without a doubt, competent. Understood? Third, and this is the most critical part, Robert, you cannot let them know that you know. You have to act completely normal. If they suspect we're onto them, they might accelerate their plans or destroy evidence. The dinner invitation, it suddenly made horrific logical sense. They wanted me there tonight for a reason, didn't they? I'd bet my law license on it. They probably had a power of attorney document ready for you to sign, buried in a stack of innocent paperwork. Or they were planning to stage an incident, maybe spike your drink and record you slurring your words to use as fresh, damning evidence. The sheer, breathtaking cruelty of it left me speechless. How could my own flesh and blood be so monstrous? The dam broke then. A sob I didn't know I was holding back racked my body. 71 years old, a self-made man who had built bridges and empires, brought to his knees by his own child. Arthur placed a firm hand on my shoulder. "I've been doing this for 35 years, Robert. I've seen it all. Money doesn't change people. It unmasks them. It reveals the person who was hiding underneath all along." The following week was an exercise in surreal discipline. I became the star of my own life, meticulously documenting every moment. 7:15 a.m., completed the New York Times crossword puzzle in 22 minutes. 8:30 a.m., analyzed and rebalanced my tech stock holdings, selling 100 shares of AAPL and buying 150 shares of NVDA. 11 a.m., volunteered at the SF Marin Food Bank, managing inventory logistics for the afternoon shift. I met with Dr. Isabel Rossi, a brilliant, no-nonsense neuropsychiatrist with an office overlooking the bay. She put me through a grueling battery of tests: memory recall, pattern recognition, complex problem-solving, executive function tasks. After 3 intensive sessions, she sat back in her chair, a look of respect on her face. "Mr. Croft, I can state with a 99.9% degree of medical certainty that you show 0 clinical signs of dementia, Alzheimer's, or any other cognitive impairment. Your working memory, processing speed, and logical reasoning are exceptional for any age. Frankly, you're outperforming most of my 30-year-old patients. It was a victory, but a hollow one. The real battle was the psychological warfare at home. Chloe called on Wednesday. "Daddy, I am so sorry about Sunday. Mark's aunt had a cardiac scare and we had to rush to the hospital. Can we please reschedule for this weekend? The kids are desperate to see you." The lie was so smooth, so effortless. "Of course, sweetheart," I said, the term of endearment feeling like a betrayal of my own soul. "Is she okay?"
"She'll be fine, just needs rest." "But listen, Daddy, while I have you, Mark and I were talking with our financial advisor. We really think you should consider setting up a living trust, for asset protection and to avoid probate. It would make everything so much easier. For later." She was still pushing. Even with the court date looming, she was still trying to maneuver me into a corner. "That sounds like a very prudent idea," I said, carefully measuring my words. "Let me give it some serious thought." "Don't think too long, Daddy," she said, a subtle edge creeping into her voice. "With the market being so volatile and, well, you're not getting any younger, you never know what could happen." Was that a threat? The line between concern and menace had become so blurred I couldn't tell the difference. That evening, my world shifted on its axis again. It was my grandson, Leo. He was 16, a lanky, quiet kid who loved coding and seemed uncomfortable with his parents' lavish lifestyle. "Grandpa?" His voice was tense, quiet. Can I come over? I need to talk to you, alone." A cold dread, different from the one that Arthur had inspired, trickled down my spine. "Of course, Leo. Is everything okay?" "Just, please, I need to see you." He arrived 20 minutes later, his face pale and streaked with tears he'd tried to wipe away. He was clutching his phone like a lifeline. "Grandpa," he choked out, "I did something bad. I recorded Mom and Dad. I know it's wrong, but after I heard what they were saying, I thought you had to know." My heart shattered and swelled at the same time. This brave, moral boy. I took the phone from his shaking hands and hit play. The voices of my daughter and son-in-law filled my quiet kitchen, their tones casual, conspiratorial. "The hearing is in 12 days, Mark. Arthur Walsh is sharp, but we have Dr. Evans' statement, the photos, the timeline. We've been systematic." It was Chloe's voice, but stripped of all warmth, replaced with a cold, calculating efficiency. "What if he fights it?" Mark's voice, always the pragmatist. "With what? We've documented every instance. The confusion at Whole Foods, the disorientation at the doctor's, forgetting his address. The judge will see a clear, undeniable pattern of cognitive decline. And even if he tries to fight it, the legal fees will bleed him dry. A case like this could cost $500,000. By the time it's over, there won't be much of an estate left to protect anyway." "And when we win?" Mark asked. "The house goes on the market immediately. Even in a cooling market, we clear at least $6 million after the mortgage. That covers our losses on that crypto disaster and gets us back to zero. Then we liquidate his stock portfolio, pay off this house, and set up the trust for Leo's college and a down payment for him. And your dad? Where does he go?" A pause. Then Chloe's voice, colder than I ever thought possible. "There's a very nice facility in Walnut Creek, good ratings, much more affordable than Presidio Heights. He'll be comfortable. He won't even know the difference. Soon enough." Leo was crying silently, his shoulders shaking. "Grandpa, I'm so sorry. I didn't know what to do. They're talking about you like you're not even a person anymore." I pulled my grandson into a fierce hug, my own tears mingling with his. "You did the right thing, kid. You did the brave thing, the honorable thing. Are they really going to take your house, the house where you and Grandma lived?" I held him at arm's length, looking into his scared, earnest eyes. Not if I can help it, kid. Not if I can help it. I called Arthur immediately. When he heard the recording, there was a long, weighted silence on the other end of the line. "Robert," he said finally, his voice low and fierce, "this changes everything. This isn't just a defense anymore. This is our smoking gun. With this, we don't just defend against their petition. We go on the offensive." "What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about a counterclaim, fraud, conspiracy, attempted financial elder abuse, undue influence. We're going to nuke their petition from orbit and salt the earth behind it. And Robert, we're going to make sure the judge knows exactly what kind of people your daughter and her husband are." The day of the hearing arrived. A bright, sunny San Francisco day that felt like a mockery of the darkness inside the Hall of Justice. I sat at the plaintiff's table with Arthur, my back ramrod straight. Leo sat in the first row of the public gallery, his presence a silent anchor. Across the aisle, Chloe and Mark sat with their lawyer, a slick operator named David Chen who looked like he'd been born in a $5,000 suit. Chloe wore a simple, conservative dress, playing the part of the concerned daughter to perfection. She wouldn't look at me. The judge, Honorable Cynthia Alvarez, took the bench. She was a woman in her 60s, with sharp, intelligent eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor that promised no quarter. David Chen went first. He presented their evidence with practiced gravitas, the photos, the doctor's note, the phone transcript. He painted a picture of a tragic, loving family forced to make a difficult decision for the good of their declining patriarch. "Your Honor," Chen concluded, "Mr. Croft is clearly experiencing the early stages of cognitive decline. My clients, Mr. and Mrs. Fletcher, are acting out of love and duty to protect their father's legacy and ensure his well-being before he makes a catastrophic financial error or endangers himself." It was all I could do not to stand up and scream. Arthur placed a calming hand on my arm. Then it was our turn. "Your Honor," Arthur began, his voice resonating in the quiet courtroom, "I'd like to submit into evidence the full psychiatric evaluation of Mr. Croft conducted by Dr. Isabel Rossi of the UCSF Memory and Aging Center." He handed the thick report to the clerk. Judge Alvarez put on her reading glasses and spent several minutes poring over it. "Dr. Rossi's findings are unequivocal. Albert Croft exhibits no cognitive decline whatsoever. He is, in her words, an exceptionally sharp. Furthermore, we will demonstrate that the petitioners have engaged in a systematic campaign to misrepresent normal behaviors as evidence of incompetence." Arthur then meticulously dismantled their entire case. The confusion at the store? I was comparing nutritional labels. The disorientation at the doctor's? I was severely jet-lagged. The forgotten address? A simple misunderstanding about a P.O. box. He presented time-stamped logs, receipts, and flight itineraries that corroborated every point. I could see the judge's expression shifting from neutral attention to growing skepticism. "But, Your Honor," Arthur said, his tone dropping, becoming more solemn, "the most damning evidence is not just the falsity of their claims, but the true venal motive behind them." He turned and looked directly at Chloe and Mark. "The petitioners are not motivated by love or concern. They are motivated by greed and desperation. They are attempting a brazen, premeditated theft of their father's life savings to cover their own catastrophic financial mismanagement." David Chen shot to his feet. "Objection! Your Honor, this is outrageous character assassination." "Sit down, Mr. Chen," Judge Alvarez said coolly, her eyes still on Arthur. "Continue, Mr. Walsh." "Thank you, Your Honor. I have here a recording that reveals the petitioner's true intentions." As Arthur queued up the audio file, I saw Chloe's face drain of all color. Mark gripped the table, his knuckles white. Then their voices filled the courtroom, cold, clear, and utterly damning. "The house goes on the market immediately. We clear at least $6 million. He won't even know the difference soon enough."
The silence in the room after the recording ended was absolute, thick with shock and disgust. Judge Alvarez slowly removed her glasses, her gaze sweeping over Chloe and Mark with a look of pure contempt. "Miss Fletcher," she said, her voice dangerously quiet, "would you care to explain this hypothetical estate planning that involves discussing the liquidation of your father's assets and his relocation to a care facility while he sits in this courtroom, demonstrably of sound mind and body?" Chloe opened her mouth, but only a strangled gasp came out. "Your Honor, it was taken out of context. We were just stressed." "Stressed?" The judge's voice cracked like a whip. "I'll tell you about stress, Miss Fletcher. The stress of being betrayed by the person you raised. The stress of having your life's work, your home, your very freedom threatened by your own child. I've been on this bench for 22 years, and what I have just heard is one of the most egregious cases of attempted financial elder abuse I have ever encountered." She turned her attention to the file in front of her, scribbling notes with furious intensity. For a moment that stretched into an eternity, she looked up. "The petition for conservatorship is dismissed, with prejudice," she glared at Chen. "That means it cannot be refiled, Mr. Chen." She then turned her gaze back to my daughter. "Furthermore, I am issuing a permanent restraining order against Chloe and Mark Fletcher. They are to have no contact with Robert Croft and are not to come within 500 feet of his residence effective immediately." She wasn't done. "I am also ordering the petitioners to pay all of Mr. Croft's legal fees and court costs. Additionally, I am referring this matter to the San Francisco District Attorney's Office for criminal prosecution for fraud and attempted elder financial abuse." Finally, she looked at me, her expression softening marginally. "Mr. Croft, the court apologizes for what you have been through. I strongly advise you to take immediate steps to secure your estate against any future predations." The gavel slammed down. It was over. "Dad, please," Chloe shrieked as the bailiff moved toward them. "Dad, you have to understand. We were drowning." I turned and looked at my daughter. The little girl I'd taught to ride a bike, the young woman I'd cheered for at her graduation, the bride I'd walked down the aisle. The mask was gone, replaced by a raw, panicked desperation. But I felt nothing. The well of love had been poisoned. "I understand, Chloe," I said, my voice steady and cold, carrying in the stunned courtroom. "I understand that you were willing to destroy me for money. I understand that you saw your father not as a person, but as a portfolio to be liquidated. I understand that the mother you claim to have loved would be sickened by what you've become." Leo came to my side and took my hand. His was warm, alive, full of promise. "Grandpa, can we go home?" I looked down at my grandson, this brave young man who had chosen truth over family, integrity over inheritance. "Yes, Leo," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "Let's go home." As we walked out of the courthouse into the clean California sunlight, Arthur fell into step beside me. "Robert, that was—" I have no words. "How are you holding up?" I stopped and looked at him, then at Leo. The loss was a vast, empty cavern inside me, but it was not the whole story. "I lost a daughter today, Arthur, but I was reminded that I have a grandson with more courage and character than I ever knew. That's not a loss. That's a gift." Leo moved in with me permanently a week later. His parents, in a final spiteful act, had told him he was no longer welcome after they discovered his role in their downfall. A 16-year-old thrown away for doing the right thing. But my big, empty house suddenly had a purpose again. It had life. We established a new rhythm. Mornings were for coffee and discussing the news. Evenings were for homework at the dining room table. Me helping him with his history essays. Him explaining the intricacies of Python code to me. Weekends were for hiking in Wire Woods or driving down the coast. "Grandpa?" Do you think you'll ever forgive her? He asked me one Saturday as we were repotting plants in the greenhouse Evelyn had loved. I paused, trowel in hand, and considered the question with the gravity it deserved. I looked out at the garden, at the legacy Evelyn and I had built. Leo, I said slowly, forgiveness is a complicated thing. It's not about saying what they did was okay. It's about freeing yourself from the poison of their actions. Do I forgive what your mother tried to do? No. The calculated betrayal, the willingness to lock me away? I don't know if I can. Will I ever have a relationship with her again? I don't see how. But I refuse to let her choices turn me into a bitter, angry old man. I have too much to live for. I have you. 6 months later, we stood in the garden together, looking at a newly installed stone bench. On a small, discreet plaque were engraved Evelyn's name, her dates, and a simple phrase we had chosen together. Family is a choice, made every day with love and loyalty. Do you think Grandma would have approved? Leo asked, his voice now softer, more at peace. I think your grandmother would have loved it, I said, putting my arm around his shoulders. And she would have been so incredibly proud of the man you are becoming. My phone rang. It was Arthur. Robert, I thought you should know. The DA decided to press charges. Chloe and Mark took a plea deal. They pled guilty to felony attempted financial elder abuse. They received 5 years of probation, a lifetime ban from serving as fiduciaries, and they have to complete 500 hours of community service. But most importantly, Robert, it's a felony on their record. Permanently. I let out a breath I felt like I'd been holding for a year. So it's really over. It's really over. Your life is your own again. Your estate is secure. You can move forward in peace. I watched Leo, now carefully watering the tomato plants we'd grown from seed. My grandson who had saved me and whom I had the privilege of saving in return. Thank you, Arthur, for everything. That night, as Leo coded on his laptop and I read a biography of Frank Lloyd Wright, a profound sense of peace settled over me. Chloe had tried to take everything from me, my home, my money, my dignity, my freedom. But in her ruthless pursuit, she had inadvertently shown me what was truly valuable. It wasn't the $8 million house, though I was grateful to keep it. It wasn't the stock portfolio or the bank statements. It was the young man sitting across from me, his brow furrowed in concentration. It was the shared silence, filled with mutual respect and love. It was the second chance to be a parent, to get it right, to protect and nurture. Family wasn't a bloodline. It was a bond forged in fire. It was about showing up. It was about a 16-year-old kid who risked losing everything to stand up for what was right. Evelyn used to say that you see a person's true character not in times of ease, but in times of consequence. Chloe showed me she was willing to sacrifice her father on the altar of her own financial comfort. But Leo showed me that courage, integrity, and love could still triumph, even in the youngest heart, even at the highest cost. I'm 71 years old, and in the last year I've learned more about life, love, and human nature than I did in the previous 70. I've learned that trust is a treasure to be earned, not a right to be demanded. I've learned that the people who profess to love you the loudest can sometimes be the ones holding the knife. I've learned that real love is action, not words. Most importantly, I've learned that it is never too late to fight for yourself, that being vulnerable is not weak, that asking for help is an act of strength, and that fighting back against those who would exploit you isn't vengeance, it's justice. It's self-preservation. To anyone out there watching, anyone who might see a shadow of this story in their own life, if someone in your family is trying to declare you incompetent to get control of your life and your money, fight back. Get a bulldog of a lawyer. Document everything. Trust your gut. You are not crazy. You are not confused. You are not paranoid. You are a target. And if you are an adult child watching this, remember this. Your inheritance is not yours. It's your parents'. They built it. They decide its fate. If you try to steal it through manipulation and legal tricks, you might get the money, but you will lose your soul. You will lose your family. You will lose yourself. Chloe and Mark got a suspended sentence and probation. What did it cost them? It cost them a father. It cost them a son. It cost them their reputation and their place in the world. Was it worth it? You'd have to ask them, but I suspect in the quiet of the night, in the house they are struggling to keep, they know the answer. As for me, I've got a grandson to raise. I've got tomatoes to harvest. I've got a lot of living left to do. The house in Presidio Heights isn't just a valuable asset anymore. It's a home. It's where Leo is learning to become a good Nan. It's where the memory of Evelyn is honored and cherished. It's where justice was served and a new, better family was born. And that is worth more than all the money in the world.